Hello there. Welcome to Just the Dis. We talk about Blu-rays here. My name's Brian. And for this episode, I am doing a collection update. And it is me talking about some stuff I picked up recently, and then a few titles I've already covered in sort of individual reviews that you can go back and check out on the channel here. And I'll let you know which ones those are, but I know that not everybody likes to watch just the individual reviews. They'd rather watch the big haul videos, and I totally get that. But I just want to make sure you don't miss out on some really great titles in case they were only covered in those reviews. I think I've talked about doing this before, but just letting you know. So we'll start with a big one. I know a lot of people have already picked this up. This is the 4K UHD release of Robocop from Arrow. Very excited about this. Very excited that this is hopefully the last time I will buy Robocop. As you can see behind me, I still have the previous version that I have to sell now, which is, you know, I'm sure a great version. Even more looking forward to this because Arrow has been killing it with their 4Ks. This, of course, a classic of the 1980s, one of the great sort of satirical cop films of that period. A great work by the wonderful Paul Verhoeven, starring, of course, Peter Weller as the titular Robocop. And yeah, come on, you guys know Robocop. You know, you either have seen it or you know it. It's an epic classic, right? So I can't wait to dig into this one. I've just gotten it, and as usual, Arrow has done, you know, they're bringing over the stuff, I believe, from the previous releases. You get a director's cut and a theatrical cut, 4K restoration of the film from the original camera negative by MGM, transferred in 2013 and approved by director Verhoeven. Now, that's interesting because it's an old master, and I haven't seen reviews of it yet. I mean, obviously, I trust Arrow to, you know, give us the best stuff they can. Director's cut and theatrical cut of the film on 2K, two 4K discs, original lossless audio, 4-channel mixes, surround options on both cuts, double-sided fold-out poster inside here, reversible sleeve featuring the original and newly commissioned artwork, which is a limited edition exclusive to this release. 80-page limited edition collector's booklet featuring writing on the film by Omar Ahmed, Christopher Griffiths, and Henry Blythe, a 1987 Fangoria interview with Rob Bottin, and archive publicity materials. Some contents exclusive to the limited edition. I forgot Rob Bottin worked on this movie. How silly am I? You know, so that's very cool. I'm excited to read that interview. I love that kind of stuff, though I don't talk about it as much on the channel. I should, because I'm a big fan of that kind of inclusion. This, of course, has a commentary by director Paul Verhoeven, executive producer John Davidson, who, by the way, is one of the Trailers from Hell bunch. And you should go over to Trailers from Hell and check out the trailers he talks about. He's a very entertaining guy, a very, funny guy, a guy I like to listen to talk about movies. And co-writer Ed Neumeyer, originally recorded for the theatrical cut and re-edited in 2014 for the director's cut. Commentary by film historian Paul M. Salmon. Commentary by fans Christopher Griffiths, Gary Smart, and Eastwood Allen. The Future of Law Enforcement, Creating Robocop, an interview with co-writer Michael Miner. Robotalk, a conversation between co-writer Ed Neumeyer and filmmakers David Burke, writer of Elle, and Nicholas McCarthy, director of Orion Pictures' The Prodigy. The Truth of Character, an interview with star Nancy Allen on her role as Lewis, Casting Old Detroit, an interview with casting director Julie Seltzer on how the film's ensemble was assembled. And it's quite an ensemble, by the way. Ronnie Cox, and of course I'm blanking on everybody else because I'm an idiot. Is it Jose Ferrer or no? I can't remember which Ferrer it is, but he's amazing in this. Let's see here. Connecting the Shots, an interview with second unit director and frequent Verhoeven collaborator Mark Goldblatt. Also, a wonderful movie talker and incredible editor, Mark Goldblatt. If you can see any interviews with him, check him out online. He always has good stuff to say and is always interesting. Director of Dead Heat and The Punisher, among others. Analog, a featurette focusing on the special photographic effects, including new interviews with Peter Curran and Kevin Kuchaver. More Than Machine, Composing Robocop, a tribute to composer Basil Polidoris, featuring film music experts Jeff Bond, Lucas Kendall, and Daniel Schweiger, and Robert Townsend. Roboprops, a tour of a superfan Julian DeMont's collection of original props and memorabilia. 2012 Q&A with filmmakers, a panel discussion featuring Verhoeven, Davidson, Neumeier, Miner, Allen, star Peter Weller, and animator Phil Tippett, which is also cool that Phil Tippett worked on this. That's another thing I forget. I love Robocop in 1987. I didn't know who Phil Tippett was then, and he obviously did some really cool work with his stop motion for some of the Ed 209 and stuff. Robocop Creating a Legend, Villains of Old Detroit, Special Effects Then and Now, 3 archival featurettes from 2007 featuring interviews with cast and crew, Paul Verhoeven Easter egg, 4 deleted scenes, the boardroom storyboard with commentary by Phil Tippett. Obviously, that's the scene with Ed 209. Director's cut, production footage, raw dailies from the filming of the unrated gore scenes presented in 4K. SDR, 2 theatrical trailers, 3 TV spots. And then on the theatrical cut, we have the commentary by Verhoeven, executive producer John Davidson, co-writer Ed Neumeier, originally recorded for theatrical cut of the film. 2 isolated score tracks, composer's original score and final theatrical mix, edited for television version of the film, featuring alternate dubs, takes, and edits, several scenes, 95 minutes, it's only SD, split screen comparisons between director's cut and theatrical cut and edited for TV version, Robocop edited for television, a compilation of alternate scenes from 2 edited for television versions, including outtakes transferred in HD from recently unearthed 35mm elements. My goodness, that is just so epic. It's just what Arrow does. I remember back in the day when I worked at a video store circa 2000, and we would get in the new Criterion DVD, and we'd be so excited that it had a commentary, and usually that was it. Sometimes it did an interview or something. Criterion obviously still doing great stuff, but I mean, they can't touch this. They cannot touch what Arrow is doing, the amount of stuff that they put into this. So I just have to remind everybody, there's not, this doesn't happen if you don't support these companies. And when somebody does this, and yes, I understand that in this case, this is the second time or whatever they put it out, and a lot of these features were previously part of those old releases. So maybe you don't get the 4K, but my point being is that support Arrow because they are just one of the top labels out there doing incredible work. And I just want them to stick around and keep doing what they do. So that's amazing. I can't wait to dig into that. And then 1-2 punch, we go right into the 4K of American Werewolf in London. Another all-time favorite for me, and one of the great horror comedies. Although, it's quite a horror movie, and it really truly starring David Naughton and some incredible creature work, of course, by the great Rick Baker. And this one is also equally stacked with stuff. A lot of it, I don't know the difference between this and the previous. Somewhere I used to have the Arrow limited edition Blu-ray, but now I've got the 4K. So I'll just go through this. But again, Arrow doing amazing stuff. Their new 4K Ultra HD restoration by them from the original camera negative. That's brand new. Not an old scan like the Robocop, which I'm sure looks good. But I can't wait to check this out, even though I have the previous Turbine 4K because I'm crazy like that. This has it's HDR compatible and Dolby Vision, uncompressed audio, optional subtitles, blah blah. Audio commentary by Beware the Moon filmmaker Paul Davis, a really cool guy who has done a lot of great work surrounding this film, including a really nice book and documentary work. I mean, he just really has done so much in regards to his love of this film, and he's a guy I love to hear talk about this movie. So I'm looking forward to that track. Audio commentary by actors David Naughton and Griffin Dunn. Also cool. Mark of the Beast, The Legacy of the Universal Werewolf, a feature-length documentary by filmmaker Daniel Griffith featuring interviews with John Landis, David Naughton, Joe Dante, and more. An American filmmaker in London, an interview with John Landis in which he reflects on British cinema and his time working in Britain. I Think He's a Jew, The Werewolf Secret, a video essay by filmmaker John Spira about how John Landis explores the film explores Jewish identity. The Werewolf's Call, Corin Hardy, director of The Hallow, chats with writer Simon Ward about their formative experience watching with Landis's film. Wares of the Wolf, a featurette in which sound effects artists Dan Martin and Tim Laws of Prop Store look at some of the original costumes and special effects artifacts from the film. Beware the Moon, Paul Davis's acclaimed feature-length exploration of Landis's film, which boasts an extensive cast and crew interviews. That, of course, the Paul Davis I mentioned previously. Great documentary. I've seen that before, and I like it. An American Werewolf in Bob's Basement and Causing a Disturbance, Piccadilly Revisited, 2008 featurettes filmed by Paul Davis. Making an American Werewolf in London, a short archival featurette on the film's production, an interview with John Landis, a lengthy archival interview with director about the film, makeup artist Rick Baker on An American Werewolf in London. The legendary makeup artist discusses his work on the film. I Walked with a Werewolf, archival interview with Rick Baker about Universal Horror and its legacy of Wolfman films. That's really fun stuff. Casting of The Hand, archival footage of Rick Baker's workshop showing the casting of David Naughton's hand. Outtakes, storyboards, featurettes, trailer, reversible sleeve, double-sided fold-out posters, 6 double-sided postcard-sized lobby cards, limited edition 60-page perfect bound book featuring new writing by Craig Ian Mann and Simon Ward, archival articles, and original interviews. I mean, jeepers creepers. What a set. I'm so excited about that. So happy to have that. Moving on. A new 4K, another 4K I picked up. This is the Heavy Metal 2000 Steelbook. And this movie is truly something special. Produced by, I want to say, Ivan Reitman. I may be misspeaking here, but I swear that he's involved. There we go, yeah. Because he's interviewed about it. Yeah, produced by Reitman. Yep. And it's very much a cult movie. As you can see here, based on the fantastical illustrated magazine Heavy Metal, producer Ivan Reitman enlists the help of some of Hollywood's animation masters to create the otherworldly tale of a glowing green orb from outer space that spreads destruction throughout the galaxy. Only when encountered by its one true enemy to whom it is inexplicably drawn will goodness prevail throughout the universe. Richly and lavishly drawn, the vignettes of the orb's dark victories include the character voices of John Candy and Harold Ramis, along with a pounding soundtrack by Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, Cheap Trick, Devo, Donald Fagen, Don Felder, Grand Funk Railroad, Sammy Hagar, Journey, Nazareth, Stevie Nicks, Riggs, and Trust. And that was what kept it off home video for a long time, was that soundtrack. Obviously, this has had a Blu-ray release before, which I thought looked okay, but apparently people said didn't look very good. But I will say I was really psyched about this new 4K scan. It looks good to me. And yeah, the movie has some really fun stories. There's one in particular with a taxi driver voiced, I believe, by Richard Romanus, if I'm remembering right. That's my favorite one. It's a space age like taxi driver thing, and gosh, that's a cool story. But there's tons of great little vignette stories in here, out there sci-fi, very sexy stuff. It's really very much adult animation. And I totally dig this movie, and so I couldn't not get this new 4K. I just like the movie too much. Exclusive newly created Dolby Atmos soundtrack, a brand new immersive soundscape experience utilizing enhanced sound effects and much more. And then it has Heavy Metal: A Look Back in HD, all new retrospective featuring reflections from producer Ivan Reitman and famous fans Kevin Smith, Norman Reedus, and more. I was watching that doc, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool stuff. Definitely dig having that as a new feature on this disc. And then you have the old features from the Blu-ray, original length rough cut with optional commentary by Karl Machek, Imagining Heavy Metal documentary, deleted scene, and alternate framing story with commentary. This, of course, includes Heavy Metal 2000, not in 4K, but on Blu-ray. And I still haven't seen Heavy Metal 2000 because I've only heard mediocre stuff about it. I've heard it's not particularly funny, and that's one of the things I love about Heavy Metal is there is a sense of humor to it that I think really makes it memorable. But definitely looking forward to checking it out on Blu-ray now that I have it in this set. And so you got 4K disc of Heavy Metal, Blu-ray of Heavy Metal, and Blu-ray of Heavy Metal 2000, which has some special features there, as you can see. But yeah, just couldn't not get this, and was really happy with the actual 4K transfer of the movie, the cult classic Heavy Metal. Okay, now we get into some stuff I've talked about, but I just had to highlight here. First up, we have from Fun City Editions, Born to Win from 1971. This directed by Ivan Passer, who would go on to do things like Cutter's Way, which is getting a release from Imprint, and had a previous release from Twilight Time, a really great neo-noir with Jeff Bridges and John Hurd. One of my favorites from the 80s, great looking movie, and just very dark stuff, and really a cult film. So this is early work for Passer, who was part of the Czech New Wave. He worked with Milos Forman, writing Loves of a Blonde and Fireman's Ball, which are two of Forman's most, his biggest, most breakout works from the Czech New Wave. Both of them got Criterion DVD releases back in the day, and I don't know if they've both gotten upgrades yet, but both are very interesting movies. I really like Loves of a Blonde particularly. Ivan Passer did his own, stuff. He did a film called Intimate Lighting, which I saw on Criterion Channel, which is very interesting, small town. I can't remember if it's set in the Czech Republic. I think so. About like this, local music school, or this band is having a concert, and they bring out a soloist who is I think he's the brother of this guy who lives in a little village, like a little house outside of this village, and it's just sort of them hanging out the house before he goes to the concert the next day, and it's really not like anything I've ever seen. Very much like feels like another culture in a lot of ways. They're hanging out, they go to a funeral, they're playing their instruments at the funeral, they drink a lot, they hang out. It's bizarre, but really interesting. So I caught up with that after seeing this again. But now this is great because this new version from Fun City, nice slipcover, original poster, is a new 2K restoration from its 35mm interpositive. And listen to my interview with Jonathan Hertzberg from Fun City Editions. I put it out a while back, and we talk a little bit more in detail about the film and about Fun City. And Jonathan is great, good friend of mine, continues to do great work. My hat's off. This is a really nice release. It's about a junkie and sort of an ex-hairdresser played by George Siegel, who's become a junkie in sort of Times Square, New York. And he is now he's very charming, but it's definitely a junkie movie. It's akin to something like Panic in Needle Park, which we didn't talk about in the interview with Jonathan, but I know he's a big fan of that movie as well. And this is not quite as depressing as Panic in Needle Park, but it is a drug movie, so it has these fluctuating tonal shifts where it will be very funny and silly in parts, and then it will have some heavier stuff, and it's really well done. George Siegel is great in the film. He's just so charismatic and so likable as this junkie. The movie opens with him like talking directly to camera and giving his philosophies, and you immediately you like the guy, but it sort of just goes through him in his day-to-day over the course of maybe like a week or something, trying to do what he can to get money to get another fix. He tries to steal a car, which ends up being Karen Black's car, and they have sort of a meet cute. He starts sort of hanging out with her. She's intrigued by him for whatever reason. And so Karen Black's in the film, and this is part of a series of films that both Karen Black and George Siegel did that were just top-notch stuff. Really great period for both of them. And so this is one that I think gets talked about a lot less, partially because coming back to this 2K Interpositive transfer, it's been available as a quasi-public domain movie for some time in really crappy editions. You can get really crappy DVDs of it that are cut. I believe Jonathan told me it's from a TV print, so it's not even the uncut version of the film. And so I think movies like that tend to, because they're treated so poorly, get remembered less well for whatever reason. But this is truly a wonderful, version of the film. It looks better than I've even remotely ever seen it. It is really something else. It also stars Paula Prentice in a small part, and it's got some other folks that you'll definitely. Hector Elizondo has a really good role in this, and Robert De Niro, a very young Robert De Niro, as an undercover sort of a cop in a very small part, but he's definitely there and present. So great release from Fun City, highly recommended. Has a commentary from writer Jason Bailey and filmmaker Michael Hull of the Fun City Cinema podcast. Jason Bailey also did a book called Fun City Cinema that is great, all about New York movies, and they have a really nice commentary talking about the actors, the history of New York at the time, lots of good stuff. I really enjoyed the commentary, and it also includes a booklet essay by Mr. Justin LaLiberty, who works for OCN and Vinegar Syndrome. I love seeing Justin, who is a man of many hats, doing a booklet essay for this film, which again is great and underseen as a 70s, part of that milieu of the 70s films. If you like that stuff, not necessarily always upbeat, but always interesting 70s period where a lot of these actors are doing great work, Born to Win is definitely a must. So I wanted to mention that here. Then I have from another partner label, Terrorvision, Love and Saucers, The Far Out World of David Huggins. Terrorvision is one of the partner labels for Vinegar Syndrome, and I've done a video dedicated to this documentary. It's a really, really interesting documentary about a man who claims to have had many extraterrestrial encounters in his life, including many sexual encounters with extraterrestrials, which I know immediately sounds kind of crazy, but I will say, watching the movie, the man himself, David, is so earnest about everything he's talking about, and he's gone and taken these experiences or whatever happened to him and made them into this incredible, haunting series of paintings. And you can see this artwork, and then the stuff on the cover here are examples of some of the paintings, and you get to see not all of them, but a good portion of his work throughout the course of the film. It is creepy and bizarre and singular, and he is a truly interesting guy. Whether you believe him or not, it's really an interesting watch, this documentary. I think it should still be available on like Tubi and some other platforms if you check out justwatch.com, which is a great resource for finding streaming movies, by the way. I think it was on Tubi, Vudu for free, some other places. If you just want to see the movie, that's great. But then this disc includes tons of great stuff, including a commentary with director Brad Abrahams and producer Matt Ralston. And my favorite is an interview with underground comic artist Robert Crumb, who saw the documentary and bought some of the paintings and talks to the interviewer about his ideas about not only the film, but just aliens in general. And it's a really, really great interview, about 25 minutes. If you saw the movie Crumb, he's quite the character. And I just loved hanging out with Robert Crumb for 25 minutes. It was great. Really great documentary. But you have a bunch of other interviews here about this movie, and it's all good stuff. It's really a packed disc, and probably my favorite thing Terrorvision has done so far, and it's definitely showing them to be a varied label and not just some kind of genre label that's going to do. I love Saturn Saturn's Core audio and video, but they seem to have carved their niches. We're going to do shot on video. I'll actually get to them in a second. Horror and action stuff or whatever, genre stuff. And that's great. Terrorvision look like they might do some of that, but they're going to do stuff like this as well. So I think they're a really interesting partner label to watch. Check out Terrorvision's tab over at vinegarsyndrome.com. And then speaking of Saturn's Core audio and video, this is probably my favorite of theirs. This is Burglar from Hell. It is a crazy bonkers shot on video movie from the 1980s, I believe. And just one of those things that is so bizarre that you can't you can't almost believe what you're seeing in some cases. And it's just so strange in that, okay, well, anyway, it says a marauding, muscle-bound burglar named Frank the Tank violently invades the home of an elderly woman who promptly turns the tables, killing him with a shotgun and burying his corpse in her backyard, abruptly dropping dead from a heart attack. Several years later, a group of young friends unsuspectingly vacation together at the aforementioned beach house, where their new witchcraft-obsessed acquaintance attempts to conjure up a rain spell. She inadvertently brings Frank the Tank back from the grave. One by one, guests are gruesomely dispatched by the wisecracking, pizza-faced undead burglar in a staggering flurry of maniacal murder and mayhem. A seminal SOV standout from the early 90s, mail-order horror boom, Burglar from Hell, built a dedicated following in the underground with its riotous mix of practical splatter effects, lowbrow toilet humor. Yeah, there's some toilet scenes, literally. Gratuitous nudity and unexpected attempts at social commentary. An engaging time capsule of 1990s Queens, New York, that is notable as the feature debut of indie scream queen Debbie D. Eaten Alive, A Tasteful Revenge. Burglar from Hell helped put filmmaker Phil Herman and his Falcon Video Collective on the micro-budget map and continues to intrigue audiences with its endearing homespun charms and bewildering bouts of camcorder phantasmagoria. Yeah, this movie's bonkers. It's really bonkers. I mean, it has like elements of like, Nightmare on Elm Street or The First Power, where you have Frank the Tank ripping people's throats out and making wisecracks and just bizarre line readings and choppy editing that sometimes feels like the kind of thing that people make fun of when they make fun of shot on video stuff. But it becomes this endearing melange of stuff. And Frank the Tank goes away for the good middle chunk of the movie where we have this like 90s, not rom-com, but like friend hanging out movie with like the annoying roommate guy and just all kinds of crazy characters that end up going on this trip to this house, and then they resurrect Frank, and in the last third he comes back and starts killing him again. But you go into this whole other movie for a while and you're just like, what is happening with this? But I just kind of loved it. I can't explain it. It just really endeared itself to me and has become my favorite Saturn's Core release so far. New transfer from the recently unearthed SVHS master, audio commentary with writer-director Phil Herman, a chip off the old block, an interview with Phil Chip Herman, from the pop scene to the Scream Queen, interview with Debbie D, Rockaway Beach Memoirs, interview with Barry Gaines, Frank the Tank Speaks, an interview with actor Brian Soule, and a bonus movie, The Wrong Side of Town, 1989, Phil Herman's previously unreleased SOV action feature debut, newly scanned from SVHS, 64 minutes, and Mercenary, an early short film by Phil Herman. So I love it when they give you a big slice of the filmmaker's work. I still have to check out both the short and The Wrong Side of Town, but I know I'm going to like them based on this. So that's Burglar from Hell, really good, fun, shot on video horror film from Saturn's Core. And then lastly, we have one from The Film Detective, who I've tried to tout on this channel as doing really great work, and a label you should definitely keep an eye on. They're doing a lot of restorations for their films. This one doesn't list a new scan, but it does look pretty good, I will say. Girl on a Chain Gang is the film. It's from 1966, and it's a black and white, kind of Southern sheriff, kind of It says Grindhouse writer Jerry Gross made his directorial debut with Girl on a Chain Gang. William Watson, Julie Ainge, and Ron Charles star in this stirring shocker about 3 young people who are framed, arrested, and tossed in jail by corrupt Southern police. Gross, who produced everything from blaxploitation films to features about teen pregnancy, exercised his social conscience in this drama about racist Southern cops. It was made 1 year after 3 civil rights workers were murdered in Mississippi, a subject Gross must have believed was worth exploiting into a drive-in theater fare. True to his low budget roots, Gross filmed this one nowhere near the South, but in Long Island, New York. I love that. And Jerry Gross is definitely a guy that, if you don't know his history, he definitely has a lot of stuff that you've probably heard of, that he was a part of. And maybe a lot of stuff that you haven't heard of, because it was less, it was much more stuff for the drive-in, if you will. But like things like I Drink Your Blood, Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, The Dynamite Brothers, Black Godfather, and Teenage Mother. He did a lot of stuff that people seem to remember in the exploitation circles, if you will. And so a fascinating dude. And this movie is, it's like you've seen this kind of thing before. It's not necessarily the best version of that kind of movie, but if you're into that sort of tension that you get from those kind of films, this film definitely has that. And it's very gritty and, tough in spots. And it's a very interesting movie for sure. It features a full-length audio commentary with author Jennifer Churchill, which was good. There's some quiet spots in it, but overall pretty good track. Girl on a Chain Gang, Race, Rednecks, and Civil Rights, an original essay by Lisa Petrucci from Something Weird Video. And I totally buried the lead. This is a collaboration with Something Weird. So if you're a fan of the brand of Something Weird and the kind of films they have been doing for years and that they have been doing in collaboration with, say, AGFA, this is definitely the kind of thing you may be interested in, for sure. I think this might be the first collaboration between Something Weird and Film Detective, but it's even more... I love this jury certificate that you get with the Blu-ray. But then, of course, like I said, it's even more christened by the fact that you have a Lisa Petrucci, she, of course, of Something Weird, essay for it. So obviously a film that was near and dear to her in some respects. And that means something to me as a fan of Something Weird, that she's endorsing it. So that's a cool thing with the booklet there. And then it's all in the title, Exploiting Jerry Gross, a short history of semi-legendary producer with author film historian Chris Pajali, who's a great genre historian, and I definitely have been digging seeing him pop up on commentaries and interviews on Blu-rays in the last year or so. Look forward to checking that out. So Girl on a Chain Gang special edition from the Film Detective, definitely worth your time, and keep an eye on what they're doing. As I keep saying, they're doing really nice work on some low budget, off the beaten path classic films, some monster films, general genre fare, noir. They are worth keeping an eye on. That's the Film Detective. So that is it for this week's collection update. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And I will talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.